What does a therapist do when you can see that a client of yours is about to make a really bad move? Now, recently I spoke about a pitfall in conducting psychotherapy. You have made a career out of listening to people deal with painful and difficult situations. And you've been there long enough to see how those situations tend to play out. So you know, for example, that grief is a process, and that if you allow it to happen, you eventually come out the other end. You know that when you get dumped, most people have a very powerful feeling that no one will ever put up with them again, and that they will be alone forever, and that usually isn't true. You know that the first few weeks of a new job are difficult, and you're coping with the fact that it isn't how you thought it would be. And you know that once you get through that, you can see the job with new eyes. But if you tell people that, in effect saying, relax, this will probably be okay, you get nowhere. You might be telling the truth, but there's no impact. And I compared this to the Greek myth of Cassandra, who the god Apollo fell in love with. He gave her the ability to tell the future, but when she didn't fall in love with him in return, he cursed her so she could see what was going to happen, but no one would ever believe her. She can see a train coming down the tracks, and she says, "Look, a train is coming," and no one steps out of the way and they all get wiped out. That's not a perfect example because there were no trains in ancient Greece. But nevertheless, you get the point. And this happens over and over and over again. So she spends her life standing helplessly, knowing what's going to happen and unable to change it. So my post was about situations when things are eventually likely to get better. But obviously the Cassandra myth is more about being able to see when things are about to get worse. She could say, if you go into battle today, you're gonna lose. But no one would listen, and they do it anyway. Well, this is one of the big problems for therapists. Just because you go see a therapist does not mean your life is not your own. As a matter of fact, most of the point of psychotherapy is to put you as fully in charge of your own life as possible. So we don't get to order you around, us therapists. We might give advice or we might tell you our perspective, but ultimately, it's up to you. And it's the same as before. Because we have sat there in that chair for so long, we've seen how things often tend to turn out. We've been sitting there on the sidelines of people's lives, watching. So sometimes it's like watching a hockey game, and you can tell that the guy with the puck doesn't see someone coming up to check him from behind. But there's nothing you can do. You just have to sit there and watch it happen. A lot of therapy is about helping people through the transitions in their lives. And those transitions usually mean making a lot of decisions. And mostly, it works out great. Any 30-year-old in therapy has 30 years of experience in their own life. That's the equivalent of 5 PhDs in what it's like to be them. Their judgment is often way better than mine would be. That's why I have to get them engaged in therapy and in the process and get them sitting in the driver's seat of their own life. But every so often, someone makes a decision that you can see with crystal clarity is a bad idea. Like someone who's been in a series of relationships with the wrong people tells you all about this new person they've just met, and they sound exactly the same. Oh, and he deals drugs just like, the last 3 guys. Or they've relapsed into out-of-control drinking 7 times before, and they're planning to give themselves a couple of weeks off to drink over Christmas. Well, that might be fine for some people, but for this person, you know how this is going to go. Or a person who's afraid of being in social situations. and decides that he's going to wait until he feels confident enough before he gets out there, even though he's been waiting for 10 years and it has never happened. Or someone has taken up smoking crack and tells you that he still has $50,000 in his life savings, so it's not really important for him to stop just yet. In these situations, most therapists cannot keep their mouths shut, and most of us don't try. Instead, we try to help people see our concerns, but we have to do it very gently. I can get in there and say, I forbid you from seeing this guy. And I actually think that some therapists do this, but I really have no right to do that. And I don't think that most clients that I see would pay the slightest bit of attention. So we're usually more gentle. You know, I notice when you describe this guy, you use almost exactly the same words that you used with the other guys. And, well, those relationships didn't work out so well. What do you make of that? Or, listen, you are completely in charge of your own life. I wouldn't presume to tell you what to do, but I really want the best for you. And I'm wondering if this is the path that will get you there. Now, usually there's a way forward, and sometimes the client turns out to be exactly right. This time is completely different from last time, and here's why. But we all have times when we've done our very best. We've pointed at the cliff and said, look, there's a cliff there. And we've put up a sign. Cliff, right here. And we've given our best advice as gently and as kindly as we can. And the person leaves our office thanking us for our input, if we've done well, or mad at us, if we've done badly. But they're determined to go ahead. And often, it does turn out to be a bad idea. You know, their diabetes gets completely out of control, or their alcohol use, or once again, they're headed for bankruptcy, or they're just stuck, not making any progress toward their goals in life. And that is one of the most difficult situations to go through if you're a therapist. You're standing there like Cassandra. You know this step isn't going to go well. And probably you say so. And no one can hear you. Awful feeling. Even if you're not a therapist, you'll find yourself in that situation at some point in your life. So you know what I'm talking about. You're going out with your friend and they're telling you, and you say, well, Sue, you're really going to marry that guy? Really? Okay. I was once at an engagement party where the woman who's going to marry my friend decided to come on to me, right? Me, right? Really barking up the wrong tree. And she's doing this at her own engagement party. This is bad judgment on so many levels. And needless to say, that marriage went just about as well as you might expect. So what's the point of this post? Just this, I guess. If your therapist suggests, well, hey, let's think about how this situation is going to go, give it a thought. They might be pointing to a cliff. They might be wrong. God knows. I have been wrong enough times, right? A lot of times. But your therapist is observing from a distance, and they're paid to be on your side. Their bias is not to thwart your every desire. It's to be of help. Do use your judgment, but consider using it maybe after you've taken a second look at the situation. Okay, that was cheerful, wasn't it? Next time, let's do something a bit more upbeat. If you like some of these ideas, my book, How to Be Miserable, 40 Strategies You Already Use, is available from any bookseller, online or in person.